2,372 distant gods. Sunny was startled awake, or rather, he regained his senses after receiving the truth. Just like the previous times, the boon he received was not quite a vision, but also not quite a memory. Rather, it was as if the knowledge of what had happened was placed directly into his mind, vague and disjointed but somehow easy to understand. The world of Ariel's game was the same. The shrine towered behind him, while the lake of lava was radiating insufferable heat in front of him. The sky was obscured by smoke and ash. However, Sunny was different from how he had been before throwing the jade figure into the lake. There was a stunned, disbelieving expression on his face, and his heart was beating wildly. His eyes were open, but he did not seem entirely aware of his surroundings just yet, overwhelmed by what he had learned. No way. Sunny jumped to his feet. He was too rattled, his mind too full of chaotic thoughts, to calm down easily. He remained motionless for a while, then commenced pacing, kicking pieces of rubble with his feet. No, really, no way. Finally, Sunny stopped and looked at the distant mountains with wide eyes. What the hell did I just witness? The magnitude of the revelation he had received as a reward for killing the wolf was too vast to fathom. Gods, demons, the fate of the world, Weaver. And the Nine, the mysterious group of people whose faint traces he discovered from time to time. Sunny always suspected that the Nine had been important, to the degree that his glorious appraisal in the first nightmare could have very well been mostly due to the fact that he had managed to kill Hero, Oro of the Nine. The young boy with vibrant red hair who had appeared in two of the truths Sunny had learned in Ariel's game. But to think the Nine had been responsible for the death of the gods. Had been determined to kill the gods, at least. There was no telling if they had succeeded. But, somehow, Sunny was inclined to believe that they had. When he tossed these two jade figures into the lava, the question he had asked was about the end of the world. Instead of a scene of total devastation on a battlefield between the gods and the demons, though, he had been shown a seemingly mundane event of mortal men arriving on a gorgeous island to inform a huntress who lived there that a supreme beast was rampaging on the border of their kingdom. Sunny had assumed that he had been shown a moment of Slayer's past then and he had. But what if that moment was also the answer to his question? What if that was the moment the world's fate had been sealed? Sunny grabbed his head and tried to calm himself. So, let's think about it slowly. There was an empire founded by War God, by one of War God's mortal vessels, most likely. At the dusk of the Golden Age, the gods grew aloof and distant, paying less and less attention to the mortal realms. And in their absence, the Empire of War embarked on an endless conquest. It devoured myriad realms, subjugated myriad people, burned the temples of Shadow God, all for the glory of their neglectful deity. Glory, glory, glory. Sunny had experienced the torment of being an imperial slave himself, during his first nightmare. He experienced the savagery of the war zealots as well, in his second. Granted, those had been driven mad by hope, their most ardent desires set aflame by her poisonous influence. The empire continued to grow, conquering more and more land until it encountered a particular realm. It was a beautiful and peaceful realm, but it was also a very special one. Because the people of that peaceful realm venerated no god, and were ruled by an oracle instead. In the revelation Sunny received, the oracle mentioned that their kingdom was special in passing. But he knew that it had to be true, not only because of the three seers themselves, but also because there had been 9 people living in that realm who all possessed the fated attribute, just like he possessed it once. That alone is mad, it's completely crazy. The 9, all of them, had been fated, just like Sunny was. Attributes were not unique to people, so there could be someone out there sharing this one with him, even if fated felt like something exceedingly, if not inconceivably, rare. Sunny would have accepted that one of the 9 had been fated, but all of them. 9 people, living in the same kingdom, and at the same time on top of that. That sounded like their existence itself had been fated. As if it had been one of the knots holding up the great tapestry of fate together. That small realm of theirs had indeed been special. And when the hungry gaze of the empire fell upon it, the oracle sent 9 fated champions to destroy the Empire. Not to save their homeland, which could not contend against war, but to avenge its destruction. To avenge their people, who were destined to be slaughtered and enslaved. There was only one problem, though. The empire had a guardian deity. One of the 6 great gods. And so, the 9 were sworn to kill the gods. They couldn't have succeeded, could they? Only they could. The gods were dead, after all. The empire had been destroyed. The sins it had committed brought upon a truly wrathful retribution, both on the Empire and on the rest of the world. Sunny lowered his hands slowly. Can it really be the reason? Could the world have been destroyed by 9 mere mortals and their dark resolve? If it had been, then it would be quite poetic, if a little terrifying. It would make it so that the gods doomed themselves by neglecting the world they had created, and allowing those who claimed to wield their authority to rampage across the mortal realms. The great gods would have been undone by little, insignificant mortals, whose suffering they had ignored. But how could the 9 have killed the gods? That was what Sunny did not understand. The clues were already in his hands, though. 2,373 walls of the trap. The 9, what do I know about the 9? Oro had been an imperial soldier as a young man. Uris had been an imperial slave, but he also claimed to have slit a god's throat. Now that Sunny knew more, he could guess that it had been the mortal vessel of war god, most likely. The one watching over the empire. It had to be, right? Aletheia, meanwhile, ventured into the tomb of Ariel. Sunny's eyes widened. Wait, what was it that the oracle had said? You simply have to find the beast's weakness. You have to lure it into a trap. You have to sink your blade into its weak spot. He remained silent for a while. Aletheia, the sorceress and philosopher, Aletheia, had been tasked with revealing the lies of the gods and teaching the truth to the rest of the 9. So, she had gone to the tomb of Ariel and became the first seeker. She was the only seeker of truth to have successfully entered the estuary, and learned the secrets hidden there by Ariel, the demon of dread. And among those secrets, was the truth of the forgotten god and his children. Who were the flaw of the gods? Wait, Aletheia had paid for learning the secrets of the estuary by becoming the source of the defilement. But that did not mean that she had failed to teach the truth of the forgotten god to the rest of the 9 before succumbing to corruption. She must have endured the knowledge of the void and only passed that one secret along, considering that they seemed to have succeeded in their plot at least partially. But wasn't it peculiar? The gods were indeed dead, but they had fallen in the war against the demons, not against the 9. The great war that had brought doom upon all of existence. So what had the 9 really achieved? Sunny took a step back, biting his lips. Wait, the sculptor, Amidon, what was the task the oracle had given him? You will build the trap for the gods, you will herald the truth that Aletheia learns, and bring it to those who must listen. To form their hearts into gravestones, and build the walls of the trap from that stone. This was the answer. Aletheia had learned the weakness of the beast, but it was Amidon who had been tasked with building the trap. It was a trap meant to bring about the death of the gods, though, so it would be peculiar to assume that the oracle meant a literal contraption. Instead, it was a trap built from the hearts of living beings. And who could it have been whose heart was supposed to become a gravestone for the gods? Bring it to those who must listen. To whom was Amidon meant to deliver the truth Aletheia learned? Who had to listen? Sunny's eyes glistened darkly. Why, it was quite obvious, wasn't it? Considering what had happened next. It was Nether, the prince of the underworld. The demon of destiny, the demon of choice. He suddenly clenched his fists and shook them in the air. You damn spell. The description of the mantle of the underworld clearly said this about Nether. He wasn't the first to lead his army against the gods. However, he was the first to shed their blood, as well as learn the secrets of his own. But it was a blatant lie. Well, perhaps it wasn't. But it was entirely misleading. There were runes written by Nether on the walls of the Ebony Tower, which had been constructed after Hope was imprisoned by the gods. He had been wondering if the demons were forbidden from siring offspring because they were of the Forgotten One, who slumbered in the void. That indicated that he had known about the connection between the 7 demons and the Forgotten God. However, he must not have known the whole truth. Otherwise, he would not have been asking the question. Weaver knew, probably because Weaver had ventured into the void and beheld the Forgotten God in person. Ariel knew, as well, because he knew everyone's fears, including that of the gods. But he chose to bury that knowledge in the tomb, where Aletheia found it. And then, Amidon delivered the truth to the underworld, and gave it to Nether. And Nether made his choice. Hell, that was the inception of the Doom War. Amidon of the 9 had indeed built a trap for the gods. The walls of The Trap were the hearts of the demons, and he was the one who had shown them the way. Sunny let out a laugh of disbelief. How do you kill a beast that is stronger than you? You so old, for example, sick another harrowing beast upon it. The 9 were not powerful enough to kill the gods, so they gave Nether the last push he needed to rally his siblings into rebelling against the heavens. That was how the world had ended. Or rather, that was how its end had begun. Naturally, the Nine did more than just give the world the initial push to send it rolling into the abyss. After all, Sunny had only considered the horrible and, quite honestly, unbelievable feats of two. There were 7 of them left. The blind poet had probably gone to the demon of imagination. The seasoned sea captain, the vision had not revealed his task, but Sunny could easily imagine him having something to do with the demon of repose and night garden. Yuri's had been a spy in the heart of the Empire, most likely, eventually ending up in the demon army. Oro, his task had apparently been the most distressing of them all, even if Sunny had no idea what it was. There was also the courtesan and the tall warrior. They were quite mysterious, and he was not sure what their role had been. And Slayer, naturally, that one, he was not ready to contemplate yet. But what had they done? What had their endgame been? Sunny took a deep breath. Find a weakness. Build a trap. Sink your blade into the weak spot of the adversary. The weakness of the gods was the existence of the forgotten god, and therefore the demons. The trap itself was the Doom War. But what was the blade of the Nine? How had intended to deliver the lethal strike to the gods? Had they simply supported the demons in the Doom War, or had there been more to their machinations? Sunny exhaled slowly. Then, a different set of runes surfaced in his memory. His eyes shook. 2374 Demon of Doom. They were the runes left on the floor of the underground cell under the ruined cathedral of the Dark City by one of the 2 high priests of The Nightmare spell, from whose corpse Sunny had retrieved Weaver's mask. He had not been able to read them at first, but managed to discern their meaning during his return to the Forgotten Shore as a saint. Taking a step back, Sunny whispered. Thus spoke Weaver, they will open the gates. And they did, calling forth doom and destruction upon us. Now, in the ruins, gods lay dead. And the demons have fallen. The Forgotten One comes, wide awake, to consume them. He closed his eyes for a moment. The weapon to kill the gods, was it the Forgotten God himself? Had the Nine wanted to unseal the void, thus awakening him and causing the end of all existence? Was that their vengeance for the blood of their people that the Empire had spilled, for the land it destroyed, and the freedom it robbed? Were these bastards fated, or were they a personification of doom? Those lunatics. He shuddered, then shook his head. No, I am jumping to conclusions. Weaver had proclaimed that they would open the gates. The they in question could have been the Nine, it could have been the demons. Or the gods. It could have even been Weaver themselves. The demon of fate could have been simply proclaiming their own intention. Sunny raised his hands and rubbed his face fiercely. He had learned so much, but he still did not have any answers. How had that damned war ended? Had the Nine achieved their goal, or had they ultimately failed? Were the gates of the void open, or were they still closed? The spreading corruption, the blossoming nightmare seeds, and the constant expansion of the dream realm suggested that they were wide open, and that the Forgotten God was free. And yet, the Forgotten God also seemed imprisoned and asleep, because if he was not, there would be no existence left. All of it would be swallowed by the void. Everything was a paradox, and Sunny did not have the key to solve it. Ah, I don't get it. He groaned. One thing was certain, though. There had always been a third player hiding behind the curtain. The demons, the gods, and the Nine. The fate of the world had been decided by these 3 forces. And while the Nine seemed pitifully weak in comparison to these mythical figures, their influence was anything but. In fact, because of how little was known about them, the Nine seemed especially dangerous. No, actually, there was a 4th force as well. The most important of them all. How could Sunny have forgotten? There was Weaver. Sunny exhaled slowly. He still did not know how Weaver fit into all of this, what goal Weaver had pursued, and what had happened to them. The Oracle had seemed to believe that the demon of Fate would be the greatest obstacle in the path of the Nine. Considering that the Nine had intended to kill the gods and destroy the world, did that mean that Weaver's goal had been the opposite? No, it did not. Knowing that slippery demon, not that Sunny knew them that well, it could have been anything. Weaver might have been the enemy of the Nine, or they might have been using the Nine to further their own goals. Who could know the truth? Well, Slayer could, if she had her memories. After all, her task was to kill Weaver. Insanity. To hell with this. Turning around, Sunny headed for the Shrine of Truth with determined steps. Entering the cool darkness of its great hall, he ignored Kai and walked directly to Slayer, who was sharpening her swords while leaning her back against one of the altars. Stopping in front of her, he looked down and growled. So, tell me, did you manage to kill Weaver? The sinister shadow stared at him silently, showing no trace of emotion. He scoffed. Or did you fail? Right, you must have. Naturally, she had. How could someone so insignificant slay the demon of fate? The very thought was preposterous. But then again, the thought that 9 mortals could bring about the death of the gods was preposterous, as well. And yet, the gods were dead. Was the woman whose shadow now served him truly Weaver's killer? No, it was impossible. You must have died by Weaver's hand, instead. Slayer showed no reaction at all, as if his words held no meaning. However, he felt her cold, black eyes changing faintly. Finally, there was a hint of emotion. What was it? Pride, despair, resolve, confusion. It seemed that Slayer did not know herself. Well, why would she? She did not even remember her name, let alone her past. Sunny covered his face with a palm and sighed deeply. What the hell did you do, you lunatics? Slayer stared at him for a few more seconds, then shrugged and returned to sharpening her swords, completely indifferent to the turmoil in his heart. Sunny cursed quietly. I have some strong words to say to Uri's, the next time I meet him. Kai, who had walked over and was looking at them in confusion, raised a brow. Uri's, who was that? Sunny looked at him, blinked a few times, and waved a hand in a dismissive gesture. Uri's, he's just an acquaintance of mine. A god, slaying slave, but also a prince, who was banished from death by a divine curse. He just sort of hangs out in the shadow realm now, so I visit him from time to chat, joke around, and try to kill him. Oh, he's also a skeleton. A talking skeleton. Well, about 80% of a talking skeleton. He had lost a few bones over time. Kai nodded slowly. Ah, I see. Makes sense, I guess. Are you alright, though? You seem on edge. Sunny glanced at him darkly. Naturally I am alright. He smiled and pointed at himself with a thumb. I am perfectly alright being on edge. Kai coughed. Oh, that's good, then. Next morning, 3 new snow figures arrived to surround the destroyed volcano.